Daf Yomi Tractate Bava Batra, page 159b, top of the page. We were in the middle of a question. From the previous Amud, so we'll start there. The Gemara asks, Umi matzis amrit bebrach ksiv. It was trying to explain the reason the verse in Psalms that said, in the place of your fathers shall be your sons, which would indicate that that a grandfather can, a grandson can inherit directly from a grandfather. And so the Gemara first attempted to say this is only as a blessing, but not halachically. And now we're on the top of 159b. But and the question was, can you only say Umi matzis amrit bevrach ksiv, top of 159b here, aval inyan din Allah? Is it only a blessing, but with regard to halacha, it does not indicate anything? V'hatanya, we learned in a Brisa on 157a, nafal abayis alav ve'alaviv, alav ve'almarishov, ohaisa alav kesuvas yishal, uval choiv, yorshe aval anuim, haben mes rishon, ve'achar kach mes ha'av, uval choiv, omer, ha'av mes rishon, ve'achar kach mes haben. But isn't it taught in the Mishnah? I'm sorry. Ve'atanya, it says a Brisa of it. Here it says, okay. Tanya generally means a brisa, but the translators here say in the Mishnah. So, at any rate, 157a, a house collapsed on a son and upon his father, or upon a certain person and upon those from whom he stands to inherit, and it is unknown who died first. If the son bore the responsibility to pay the marriage contract of his wife and to pay the creditor, and the son had no money with which to pay them except that which he might inherit from his father, and the father's heirs say, the son died first, and afterward the father died, and therefore the son did not inherit property from his father, and the creditor says the father died first, and afterward the son died, there is a dispute as to the halachim. The son therefore inherited his father's property, and his creditor has a lien upon the property, enabling him to collect payment from the property even after the son's death. Ma'elav Yehoshua b'nei Morishav ache hislogadaitach lo matzi oma mikoich avu de'ava ko'oseno chi dechi ksiv tachal chavisecha yuvanecho בברוך כסיב כי מס הבן ואחר כך מס האב מה יהווה נאמר לו בעל חויב ירושס אבוהון כשקיל. What, is it not correct to explain that the father's heirs are the son's heirs, and the term those from whom he stands to inherit is referring to the deceased's brothers? And if it enters your mind to maintain that the grandson cannot say, I come to repossess the property on the basis of the right of my father's father to be the property, father to the property, as when it is written in the verse in Psalms, in the place of your fathers shall be your sons, this is written as a blessing, then the Mishnah is difficult. According to this understanding, grandsons inherit from their grandfather only through their father. If so, even if the son died first and afterward the father died, what of it? Let the creditor say to the son's sons, it is their father's inheritance that I am taking, as the grandsons inherit from their grandfather only through their father. Lo. The Gemara rejects this explanation. Yorshei ha'av echav, morishav achei zavu. No, the father's heirs are the deceased son's brothers, who certainly inherit from their father directly, and the term those from whom he stands to inherit is referring to the deceased father's brothers. Therefore, one cannot derive from the Mishnah that a grandson inherits from his father directly. V'omina Rav Sheshes ben Mahu shiresh es imo bekever lahanchil lachin min ha'av. Amar lo Rav Sheshes tenei sua ha'av shenishba umeis beno b'medina uven shenishba umeis aviv b'medina Yehoshua Yehoshua ben yachaloiku. The sages raised a dilemma before Rav Sheshet. What is the halacha with regard to a son inheriting from his mother? while he is in the grave, in order to bequeath that inheritance to his paternal brothers. If a son dies, and afterwards his mother dies, does the deceased son inherit from his mother and subsequently bequeath the inheritance to his paternal brothers, who are not related to the mother? Rav Sheshet said to them, "You learned it in a Braita. Consider the case of a father who was taken captive and died in captivity, and his son died in the province," meaning at home. "And consider the case of a son who was taken captive and died, and his father died in the province. Since it is not known who died first, the father's heirs and the son's heirs divide the inheritance." Hechidami ilem diktani hai ninu yorshia v'hai ninu yorshia ben elolav hachikamar av shenishba umeis ben bitoy b'medino uben bitoy shenishba umeis avi imo b'medino lo yadinan hai binayu umeis bereisho yorshia av v'yorshia ben yachaloiku. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of the case? If we say that the case is, as the Braita teaches, the Braita is difficult. Who are the father's heirs and who are the son's heirs? The same individuals inherit from them both. Who are the father's heirs and who are the son's heirs? That's a good one. Who are the father's heirs and who are the son's heirs? Gematria, 487. 748. Who are the father's heirs and who are the son's heirs? The same individuals inherit from both of them. Rather, is it not so that this is what the Braita is saying? Consider the case of a father who was taken captive and died in captivity. And, okay, let's see here. Hai ninu yorshia av. Hai ninu yorshia av, hai ninu yorshia ben. The same individuals inherit from both of them. Rather, it is not so. Hai ninu yorshia av, v'hai ninu yorshia ben. How about that? Elolav hachikamar av shenishba umeis ben bito b'medina uben bito shenishba umeis avi imo b'medina v'lo yedina naimanayu umeis v'reisha yoshiav yoshia ben yachaloiku. The Gemara asks, what are the circumstances of the case? If we say that the case is as the Braita teaches, the Braita is difficult. Who are the father's heirs and who are the son's heirs? The same individuals inherit from both of them. Rather, it is not so that this is what the Braita is saying. Consider the case of a father who was taken captive and died in captivity, and his daughter's son died in the province, and consider the case of the son of his daughter who was taken captive and died, and the father of the captive's mother died in the province, and we do not know which of them died first. If the father died first, his daughter's son inherits from him, and the son's paternal relatives subsequently inherit from the son. If the son died first, the father's heirs inherit the father's estate. Since it is unknown which of them died first, the father's heirs and the son's heirs divide the inheritance. V'isanihi namid ben meis bereisha Le'isred לעבוד אמא בקברי ולהרסינו לאחור מן אבו אלא לאו שמע מינו אין הבן יורש אמו בקבר להנחיל לאחים מאב. And if it is so that let's see what we're doing on time here. 9 minutes, okay, almost 10 minutes. And if it is so that a son inherits from his mother while he's in the grave, Although the son indeed died first, he should inherit from his mother's father while in his grave and bequeath his inheritance to his paternal brothers, and the son's heirs should receive the entire inheritance. Rather, isn't it correct to conclude from the Braita that the son does not inherit from his mother while in the grave in order to bequeath that inheritance from his paternal brothers? Amar le Rav Acha bar Yomi le Abaya. Af anan nami tanina nafal abayis olav ve'al imo elu moedim shirach alayku v'misa nihi nami de ben meis bereisha liyarsei liime v'kivrei v'liyarsu inu lachem me'avu elav shma mino ina ben yoyer shesimoy v'keval hanchilach minav shma mino. Rav Acha bar Yomi. We just had Rabbi Yosef bar Yumi, and now we're having Rabbi Acha bar Yumi. I wonder if they're brothers. Okay. Anyway, Rabbi Acha bar Yumi said to Abaya, we learned this halacha in the Mishnah 158b as well. If the house collapsed on his son and upon his mother, both these sages and those sages, meaning Bisham and Beit Hillel, concede that the son's heirs and the mother's heirs divide the property between them. And if it is so that a son inherits from his mother while in the grave, although the son indeed died first, he should inherit from his mother while in his grave, and they should inherit from him, meaning he should bequeath his inheritance to his paternal brothers. Rather, isn't it correct to conclude from that Mishnah that the son does not inherit from his mother while in the grave in order to bequeath that inheritance to his paternal brothers? The Gemara conclude from the Mishnah that this is so. And what is the reason for this? That a son does not inherit from his mother while in the grave? I'm not sure what that means, while in the grave. If a son's in the grave, maybe he's standing in the grave, but he's still alive. I don't know. Amar Abaya says, Never sibo. Beben? Never sibo baal. Ma sibo mo baal. En baal yorish yish bekevel. Av sibo mo beben. En ben yorish mo bekevel. Hanchil achin minav. Abaya says the term transfer concerning the transfer of inheritance from one tribe to another was stated with regard to the inheritance of the son. See Numbers chapter 36, verse 7. And the term transfer was stated with regard to the inheritance of a husband. See 111b, 113a, and Numbers chapter 36, verse 9. Just as in the case categorized as transfer, that was stated with regard to the inheritance of a husband. The husband does not inherit from a wife while he is in the grave in order to bequeath that inheritance to his heirs. So too, the case categorized as transfer, that was stated with regard to the inheritance of a son. The son does not inherit from his mother while in the grave in order to bequeath that inheritance to his paternal brothers. Ahuda amar lechavre nechse debar sisin mizabnina lach avechad ara ahave mikara makraria debe bar sisin amar le halav debar sisin he v'ikore he the mekaria debar sisin. There was a certain person who said to another, I am selling to you all of the property that I own of Bar Sisin. There was one parcel of land that was called the tract of the house of Bar Sisin. The seller said to the buyer, this latter parcel of land is actually not the property of the house of Bar Sisin. It is merely called of the house of Bar Sisin, therefore it is not included in the sale. Okay. Also the comment Rav Nachman okmin de belach lokeach oikma bida de lokeach amar le Rav Nachman dina hachi hamos bechaver avaraya Rami Rav Adrave to Rav Nachman and Rav Nachman. The matter came before Rav Nachman. Okay, what happened? Selling a property all I own of Bar Sisin. One parcel is called the house of Bar Sisin. Then the seller said to the buyer, this latter parcel of land is not actually the property of Bar Sisin. It's called. Okay. So basically the seller said, you don't get a certain amount of something. Okay. Manik Rav Nachman, he placed the land in possession of the buyer. So the buyer was right. Rav said to Rav Nachman, is this the halacha? The halacha is that the burden of proof rests upon the claimant. In this case, it's the buyer. And the Gemara, no, I would say the claimant is the seller. The Gemara raises a contradiction between the statement of Rav and Yosef and between the statement of Nachman and another statement of Nachman. Tehud Yamalei Chavri, my boy is behind base. Yamalei Minach Zevin Tevachal Shnei Chazako Amalei Anna Bishikuni Gavoy Have. The Gemara explains the contradictions. There was a certain man who said to another, "What do you want?" Meaning, what are you doing with this house of mine? And he says to the claimant, "I purchased it from you, and I worked and profited from it for the years necessary for establishing the presumption of ownership." A chazakah. The claimant said to him, "I was traveling among the settlements in a distant location, and I was unaware that you were residing in my house, which is why I did not lodge a protest." Also, the coming of Nachman, Amalei Zil B'Ronachi Lochtach, Amalei Rabban of Nachman Dinachi, Hamos Mechavela Oravaraya, Kashia Derove, Aderove. With Rav Nachman and Rav Nachman, the one residing in a house, came in front of Nachman for a judgment. Rav Nachman said to him, "Go clarify your profiting, meaning prove that you really resided there for 3 years, and then the case can be judged." Rabbi said to Rav Nachman, "Is this the correct judgment?" The halacha is that burden of proof rests upon the claimant. Therefore, the claimant should have to prove that the possessor did not reside in the house. The first statement of Rava is difficult, as it is contradicted by the second statement of Rava. And the first statement of Rav Nachman is difficult, as it is contradicted by the second statement of Rav Nachman. In the first case, Rav Nachman ruled in favor of the buyer, and Rava ruled in favor of the seller, whereas in the second case, their rulings were reversed. The Gemara answers the apparent contradiction between the first statement of Rava and the second statement of Rava is not difficult here. With regard to the property of Bar Sisan, the seller stands in possession of his property, and the buyer claims a parcel of land from him. There, the buyer stands in possession of his property, since he dwells in the house. The seller wishes to evict him. The Rav Nachman Lakashia, Hoch Kevin Amarle, the Bar Sisan Mikare, the Bay Sisan, the Bay Bar Sisan, Mikare, the Bay Bar Sisan, Allah the day, Ramyelik Aloye, the Lav, the Bay Bar Sisan, Hacha, Lo Yehe Ella, the Nakich Mi Lo Amrina Le. The contradiction between one statement of Nachman and the other statement of Nachman is not difficult as well. Because here, since the seller says to him, "I am hereby selling you all the property that I own of the house of Bar Sisan, and this parcel of land is called of the house of Bar Sisan," it is incumbent upon him to reveal that it is not the house of Bar Sisan. But here, in the case where the claimant states that he had been in a distant location, it should not be considered as any case other than where the possessor is holding a document as evidence that he purchased the house. Wouldn't we then say to him, first ratify your document and only then be established as the owner of the property? In this case as well, since his presumptive ownership is in a place of a document, he needs to clarify the matter by means of witnesses. Hadron alach, mishameis, we shall return to you, mishameis. And now we continue on to the next chapter of Bava Batra, which is, we'll find out next time. Bezras Hashem.